Hi guys, in this video we'll look at blood flow in the chambers of the heart. We are going to look at the chambers of the heart, and I will refer to the diagram seen in the lower right hand corner. This diagram shows a cross section of the heart where the chambers are labeled 1, 2, 3 and 4. We have to remember that this is the right of the heart and this is the left. I will number the points seen on the screen which refer to the respective chambers. The 4 chambers of the heart are the right atria and ventricle and the left atria and ventricle. Let us look at blood flow through the heart. Blood will enter into chamber 1, which is the right atria, and it does so through the vena cava. So this vessel here is the vena cava. Right, this is also the vena cava here. Right, the one that you know, which I've mentioned to you, enters into the chamber at the top. We say that deoxygenated blood enters into the right atria through the vena cava. The right atria will then contract or squeeze and will push this deoxygenated blood into the right ventricle. So we are in chamber number 2. In the right ventricle, this deoxygenated blood must now leave the heart from the right ventricle and go to the lungs. And I'm going to trace the pathway. So it's going from 1 into 2. And it's going to exit the heart through these vessels. These vessels are referred to as the pulmonary arteries. The pulmonary arteries will take this deoxygenated blood to the lungs. The blood will gain oxygen. It becomes oxygenated blood, and it must now return to the heart. And it returns to the heart through chamber 3, that is through these vessels here. And these vessels are what we call the pulmonary veins. So the pulmonary veins carrying the oxygenated blood returns into the heart, into the left atria. The left atria will now squeeze and contract, and on doing so, it will push the blood out of the left atria into the left ventricle. In the left ventricle, we have our oxygenated blood that the body needs, so that when the left ventricle squeezes, blood is pumped out of the left ventricle to the rest of the body. So I'm going to trace the pathway for this oxygenated blood to get out of the heart. So we are in chamber 4, and this oxygenated blood exits the heart through this vessel called the aorta. And this is blood flow through the heart through the 4 chambers. We have looked at this before, but what I want to emphasize in this video is the fact that this flow of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood through the heart is facilitated by how the heart pumps. So I'm looking at my diagram on the right, and I'm going to point out something very important, which is that while we've been looking at the 4 chambers, and I've talked about each chamber squeezing and pushing blood out of that respective chamber, we have not as yet mentioned the fact that the chambers will squeeze or contract at the same time, and the chambers I'm referring to are the atria and the ventricles. If we look to our diagram, we will see that the atria contract simultaneously and the ventricles contract simultaneously. And this is why the heart works constantly day and night. I'm going to take a look at the notes, and we're going to examine what happens when these atria contract versus when these ventricles contract. We say that when the atrium receive blood, and this blood would be received through the vena cava and the pulmonary veins. Right, I'll label. So we have our vena cava here and pulmonary veins here. When these atria, which is our left and right atria, receive blood from these veins, the vena cava is a vein. I'll make sure to mention that now. The vena cava is a vein. When the atria receive blood, both atria contract at the same time, push blood into the ventricles. The ventricles will then squeeze at the same time and push blood out of the heart. The blood which is pushed out of the heart may go to the lungs, or it may go to the rest of the body. What I'm going to emphasize in this video is that the atria contract at the same time and the ventricles contract at the same time. What this allows for is blood flow through the heart, that is both through the left and right chamber, and it also allows for blood to be pumped to the body, to the lungs, and blood to be received into the heart from the vena cava and the pulmonary veins. And in my last slide here, I mentioned the heart works at two pumps, one on the left and one on the right. So to summarize, we have looked at blood flow through the heart, through each chamber, right from right atria to right ventricle, to left atria to left ventricle. And this blood flow in the heart occurs when the atria contract at the same time and the ventricles contract at the same time. Right, so we say that the heart works as two pumps, one on the left and one on the right, and that is why the heart is referred to as the double circulatory system. You have to ensure that you've taken down the notes from both slides into your notebook. And now that we've looked at the heart, we can now move on to looking at the blood vessels in the body in more detail.